I feel like more and more, I really, really don't like getting my mixer out.
Yeah,
I don't feel like doing that. Yeah.
I can make all of these things and I don't need to get anything out of the
Yeah.
cabinet. Like, why would I ever use my stand mixer again? There's some things that require it. Like, I'm not gonna try to whisk 10 egg whites by hand. I'm just not gonna do it.
Right. Hey everyone, I'm Claire Saffitz. Welcome to my home kitchen. Today we have another episode of Dessert People where I get to have guests on, and I'm very excited to welcome cookbook author, food stylist, and photographer Yossy Arefi, author of Snacking Cakes. And we are going to make a delicious, very quick and easy fall dessert, but that is also great any time of the year.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. Talk to me about the idea of snacking cakes, because I feel like I naturally gravitate toward this style of cake, like something really not only easy, but like not too sweet, so you can like any time of the day, even breakfast, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so a snacking cake is a one-layer cake. It's really easy to make. It's really easy to clean up because there's basically only one bowl to make the cake. They don't have any like fancy frostings or anything. Some of them have a confectioner's sugar glaze like the cake we're making today. And some of them you just like dust it with powdered sugar and have it for breakfast.
Yeah. I've long thought that powdered sugar was like an underrated finisher for cakes, right?
Yeah.
It like looks so pretty and it's like the easiest thing ever. Talk to us about your pumpkin olive oil cake.
This is a great cake for kind of any time, but it's especially nice in the fall. It has really nice warm spices. There's some allspice and black pepper and olive oil, which gives it kind of a savory note. And then the glaze is amazing. It's like super silky, has olive oil and maple syrup, and then you get nice crunchy toasted pumpkin seeds on top.
So special equipment, just like a bowl, a whisk, and a pan of your choice.
Yep.
Talk to me about ingredients.
So this cake has really simple ingredients: all-purpose flour, baking powder, light brown sugar, eggs, baking soda, olive oil, pumpkin puree, salt, cardamom, allspice, and cinnamon, and black pepper.
If you have a warm spice preference, right? It's like
Oh
you
yeah,
could
for
like
sure.
swap in or out or whatever.
Absolutely.
Where should I start? Do you want me to start with the pan?
Yeah, let's start with the pan. So you can just use any oil or baking spray, and you just want to coat the inside of the pan.
Okay.
We add all of the wet ingredients to the bowl first, and then we add the flavoring, so spices and salt, and whisk that all together so it's really smooth and emulsified, and then we'll add the dry ingredients.
So I'm just doing, I had like a little neutral oil, so I'll just do that in the loaf pan.
Yeah, and then I always suggest to line with parchment paper, and you can just line it on two sides. It just helps make the cake easier to lift out at the end.
It's just cut to like the width of the, or the length of the pan, and then lay this right in. When you have the 8x8, are you lining it the same way? Like
Yep,
with
just
overhang?
two sides. So the first thing we're gonna add to the bowl is 2 eggs and the light brown sugar.
I'll make this a little
A little more
I'll
space.
give us a little runway. Tends to be a little tight. Okay, so that's the brown sugar.
Yeah.
Here, you want to crack one of those? I'll do one of these. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I was practicing my
Your
my
eggs?
one-handed egg cracking, which is like not something you ever need to do
I
unless
know.
you're like on or something and you need to crack an egg that fast. But
I usually do it, but I felt like 2 today.
oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you just want to whisk that up until it's nice and foamy and kind of homogeneous.
Okay.
Takes about a minute or so.
So this like it gets a little bit. It gets like so silky looking and.
And it's, opaque and a little bit pale. You'll see there's kind of like small bubbles throughout the mixture. I think that looks great.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's like a little foamy.
a little foamy.
Okay.
Whatever you're doing, down at the ground.
I was doing it
Just
down here.
for leverage.
One, because there's not that much room, and two, yeah, like leverage. It's like kind of thick, so it's just easier.
So next we're gonna add the olive oil and the pumpkin.
Okay. So it's a
Okay.
half cup of that.
Half cup of oil, and I think it's a cup of pumpkin puree. And then all of the spices will go in now as well, and the salt. The recipes all call for kosher salt. I mentioned it in the beginning of the book, but for these recipes we used diamond crystal.
You want to read me the
Yes.
spice quantities?
We have 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon,
Okay. So a teaspoon of cinnamon.
and then a half teaspoon of cardamom,
Okay.
and an 1/8 teaspoon of ground allspice, basically like a big pinch.
Okay.
And I say a few grinds of black pepper, so I usually just like grind it right into the bowl.
Yeah, okay.
Kind of a similar amount.
I love this combination of spices.
Yeah, it's nice and warm. It's like you have the familiarity of the cinnamon, and then you get kind of the citrusy cardamom and the allspice and black pepper, which kind of have a little bit of savory heat.
You're right, yes.
You can't really like identify that it has pepper in it, but it just kind of feels a little bit warm.
Right.
Yeah.
And I like it's kind of a, it's a slightly like unique touch. You don't see that. I think people probably don't know you can use black pepper in sweet baking. So that was all the liquid plus the spices.
Yep. And then we're going to add the leavening, which is baking powder and baking soda, and the flour. So just reference here, we have 1 teaspoon of baking powder.
Okay. 1 teaspoon of powder. Okay, did
and
that
a
right?
1/2 teaspoon of soda.
So easy. Okay. And then because you have the brown sugar in here, you have like an acidic ingredient.
Exactly, yeah.
So you have something for the soda to react to.
Yeah, and since it's such a small amount of batter, you can mix it by hand. You don't have to worry too much about the leavening not being like totally mixed in, because usually when you're making a cake, you mix all the dry ingredients in a separate bowl. But since it's just 1.5 cups of flour, it's totally fine to just dump it all in there.
Right.
As long as you give it a nice stir. And the batter it'll be kind of thick, and yeah, I would suggest taking a rubber spatula and just making sure you get down all the way to the bottom to make sure it's really evenly mixed, but that's it.
Yeah, this looks like such a nice, I love the color that you get with a canned pumpkin. We're doing the glaze.
Yeah.
But if you want to skip that part, you could do like little chopped up pumpkin seeds on top.
Totally. Yeah, and you could also add like a 1/2 cup of chopped chocolate and do a chocolate glaze. You can add walnuts or any other nuts that you like. Just like definitely feel free to customize. I love baking with whole grain flours. I think they're just so tasty. And so I always give a suggestion. You can substitute like about 1/3 of the flour in most of the recipes for a whole grain flour, like rye, spelt, or whole wheat.
Because the whole grain flours absorb more liquid, I feel like something with pumpkin in it is a really good application because there's like liquid for it to absorb.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, great. So this is gonna go in. So I have my oven on 350. Okay. So I baked one last night, and it baked for just right in the very center of the time range, which was I think like 50 to 60, so it went for about 55.
And you'll also know it's ready because it'll be puffed and golden. When you insert a toothpick into the center, it'll come out clean. And you'll also like smell the delicious warm spice smell.
I actually didn't set a timer for it. It was like, oh no. But then that's exactly what happened. It was like,
It smells
I smelled
done.
that it was done, yeah.
Yeah.
So you get that like really classic loaf cake look with like the, the split and everything.
Yeah.
And it turns such a nice color. Very, very fall-y. Should we do the glaze?
Yeah, sounds great.
So talk about the ingredients for the glaze. Also like very straightforward.
Yeah, the glaze is really simple. You're gonna start with confectioner's sugar, and you don't have to sift it before you use it unless it's like super lumpy, then you might wanna run it through a sieve, but since we're gonna whisk it up really well, you don't really have to worry about it. And then we're also gonna add olive oil and some maple syrup, and then a little warm water to kind of get it to the right consistency.
I didn't know this, but you not only styled everything in the book, but that you also shot all the photography and did all of that. I cannot imagine that. That's incredible. And like the recipes, I think, like so beautiful. I don't have any formal food styling training. I just like know what I've seen and try to like mimic it. But then I'm like, mine doesn't look like the drips in the photo.
The drips were an obsession of mine.
Oh, wow.
For the whole shoot. So if you look through the book and appreciate them, I really appreciate it.
Okay, good. All right, cool. Well, I'm excited to like try it.
So the glaze is really simple. You just need a bowl and a whisk, and we're gonna add some maple syrup and olive oil into this confectioner's sugar.
Okay, so just all at once?
Yeah, just dump it all in.
Okay.
And then you just want to whisk that up until it's nice and smooth. So you'll see when you add the confectioner's sugar and olive oil, it's still pretty thick. So we're gonna add some water to it. This is just some warm water, and maybe I can drizzle for you. So let's start with like 1/2 tablespoon or so.
Okay. And it's always shocking like how little liquid you need to get it to sort of smooth out.
Yeah, definitely. I go for kind of a thicker glaze, so I'm gonna add the water kind of a little bit at a time.
And that's the other thing is it's always surprising like just how thick it needs to be to get those drips.
If you want to get those nice, really dramatic drips, it actually has to be pretty thick. But if you want to make it thinner because you prefer kind of a thinner, more crackly glaze, you could totally do that too. It looks so silky and delicious, and I'm going to add just a tiny bit more water.
Okay.
But like like
It
a
is
drop.
it's so like satiny. in
Yeah,
texture.
the olive oil makes the best texture.
Yeah. Wow. So you really added like 3 drops, but it does. Even that made a little bit of a
It's easier
texture
to
difference.
add than to take away.
yeah. So it's like pourable but really thick.
Yeah, it's really thick.
Okay.
And it's moving, but it's moving slowly. Like when you
Wow.
see it kind of pool in the bowl, it sits on top of the surface for a second before it kind of like disappears into the bowl.
Right. I'm gonna let you do the
Okay.
the actual glazing part. So let me know what you need. So we have this. Oh, just the spoon.
I just need the spoon, I think.
Okay.
So my glazing technique, I'm gonna kind of get all of the glaze towards the front of the bowl, and I'm gonna try to pour it in kind of one fell swoop across the top.
Ooh. Oh my God, it's happening.
It looks so
Wow.
good.
It does look so good.
And I'm gonna try to get it like kind of even, but if it's not perfectly even at this point, it's fine.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. And then I'm just gonna use the spoon to kind of ease it down the sides where I want it to go. And I try to leave a little bit of the top of the cake uncovered because it's just like a nice pretty color. And then if I see it kind of dripping naturally, I'll kind of ease that drip down the side. And this is kind of like moving really slow. You might think that it's not gonna drip anymore after this, but it'll keep going on its own.
I often thin it out too much. Like I want it to happen faster, and then half the glaze ends up on the surface. You know? Such good drips. So before it sets too much, we'll do the little topping.
Yes, and I forgot to mention I got so excited about getting the right texture that I forgot to put a tiny pinch of salt in the glaze. So don't forget a little pinch of salt in the glaze. And then we're also going to sprinkle the top with some pumpkin seeds and a little bit more flaky salt because it's delicious and adds really great texture.
I love the crunch from pumpkin seeds because they're like hollow. You know, when you toast them, they
Yeah.
puff. The green plus like the burnt sienna color of the loaf is very fall.
Beautiful.
Pretty.
And then just a little pinch of flaky salt because you got to season your baking like you season your food. And it looks great.
Yeah, it's so pretty. Such an easy cake. Okay, when you slice a loaf cake, do you slice from the center or do you go from like one
Ooh,
side?
No, from one side.
From one side, okay.
Unless I want unless I'm like photographing it and I'm photographing and I want it like
You
the
want, like,
most
the crumb.
glorious
Yeah,
slice.
yeah,
It's
the hero
probably from the
slice.
center. I kind of love the end piece of
Yeah?
the loaf cake because it has like a little extra crunchiness.
Ooh, so, what a beautiful crumb.
So pretty.
Looks so delicious.
So the longer that you let the glaze sit, the more it will harden. So it's a little bit soft still, which is really delicious for eating. So like if you want to eat it, don't worry about waiting for it to set all the way, but it will kind of continue to harden as it sits.
Okay, I'm gonna taste.
I'm gonna get a piece with glaze because the glaze is so tasty.
I feel like a snacking cake is like I want a square and I want to just like eat it like
Yeah,
that.
it's definitely something that you can grab. Like you don't need a knife and fork. You don't need a plate.
This is going to sound really dumb, but it is like the perfect snacking cake.
Yeah.
It's like, I just like want to keep eating it.
Keep eating it.
And this was a version I baked last night, so obviously like it keeps really well.
Yeah, definitely. All the cakes keep really well on the counter for a few days. That's kind of another one of the defining characteristics of a snacking cake is that it can hang out for a little while and still be really great.
Yeah, and the olive oil and the pumpkin
Yep.
really help with that, like preserves it. This recipe was out of Yossy's book, Snacking Cakes. Such a wonderful book filled with super easy, quick to assemble, and lovely, lovely cakes for your countertop and for eating any time of day. And Yossy, where can people follow you?
I'm at Yossy Arefi on pretty much any social media. And I also have a blog, apartment2bbakingco.com.
And you also have, this is actually your second book.
It is, yeah.
Your first book
My
is-
first book is called Sweeter Off the Vine, and it's all fruit desserts.
You can see why I like gravitate toward Yossy's recipes. It's like these are recipes after my own heart. So thank you so much for coming over.
Thank
This is
you.
so delicious. I am really excited to make a recipe from the book. And oh right, like and subscribe. That's I like never wanted to say that, and now it's like the easiest way to end a video.
And make
I
sure you
just say
click
that.
bell notifications to get
Oh yeah, we don't know what that is. I don't know about YouTube. Okay, great.
Cut.